Alright, so in this video I'm going to show you how to use the website Virsaise.com. So the very first thing that you're going to want to do is, of course, get logged in. So if you go to Virsaise.com and in the bar you can just type /admin. That'll take you to the login page. You can then enter your login credentials, which would be your username and your email address and your password. Click on login. And the first thing that you're always going to see is the dashboard. Now normally on the dashboard things will pretty much update automatically for themselves, and sometimes this might be styled a little bit differently just based on how WordPress is currently organized, but for the most part this is always what it looks like, pretty roughly speaking. If there are ever any little alerts right here, you don't really have to worry about those too much. They usually resolve themselves, or we will resolve them if they're actually something that's going to cause a problem. But this is your basic dashboard. Right here where it has your name of your site, you can hover over this menu and we're going to right click here, open this in a new tab, and that'll take us to the actual home page. Now the first thing to describe is how this page is actually laid out. The first thing you'll notice here is that we now have this admin bar at the top, and that gives us different little menu icons here. So the most important one is your dashboard. This takes you back to this screen, so very important to remember this one. The customized menu changes site-wide items. We don't really have to bother with that too much because most things are going to be changed on the page itself, as you'll see shortly. The new menu, we don't really bother that too much as well. Generally speaking, we're going to create things from the dashboard, but if you wanted to create something really quickly, you would do that right here. And then these two buttons are the most important. So the edit page and the edit with Elementor. Now the difference here is that the edit page option is just going to give you core options for the page. This will be things like the permalink, which is your URL, or if you're setting featured images for Google or something like that. So if I click on edit page, we'll see it's just a very plain menu, and most of the options are right here on this little side panel where you'll actually change just the permalink. But once the page is created, you shouldn't really need the edit page option too much. Now from here we see there's also this button with edit with Elementor, but before I click on that, let me go back and show you something else. So if I'm hovering over edit with Elementor, we see that it's got this little drop down, and what it's showing you is all of the different parts that make up this particular page. Now I've got the header, footer, the mega menus. I'll explain all that shortly, but if I click on the actual words edit with Elementor itself, instead of taking me to one of the parts, it's going to take me to the actual content of this particular page. And that can be a little bit confusing sometimes to know the difference, but you'll figure it out as you kind of go along. Now if I click on edit with Elementor, it's going to have me edit the actual contents, and I'll show you this in a second here. But let's say that what I really meant to do was edit just the header, like I was trying to change the shop button or change the women's button. Well, I still have the option to click on this little submenu inside of the Elementor page builder, and it's then going to take me now to leave where I am and have me edit that submenu. So we'll click on save and watch. It then is going to give me the option to now start changing all of this stuff. Now in particular, I don't really like to do it that way. I like to go directly to the theme part that I want. I just find it a little bit easier to see. But you again still can just kind of go back from the very beginning, click on those theme parts. If you're ending up in the wrong section, you always have that little yellow drop down that's going to come down and let you edit the section that you want. Now before we get into this, let's talk about how the edit menu actually works. So I'm going to just exit out of all this. Okay, if I click on exit, that'll take me back to the dashboard. If I click on view page, it'll take me to the page that I'm actually working on. So in my dashboard, I'm going to go back to the view site, because before we start getting into editing all the different little parts here, we want to just first talk about what editing actually means. Okay, So I'm back on the home page right here, okay? And there, let's see, make sure it's loading properly. Sometimes when you're working on it, you'll notice that it will kind of be slow. But if it's ever not loading something like right here, looks like I just broke the video just by messing around with it. We can always go back. So I'm just going to go back into Edit with Elementor. It looks like I was playing with something and this little background got deleted. So we've always got a History tab and Revisions. And it'll show me any little revisions that were accidentally made. For example, right here, it's got a little revision that was made a few minutes ago. We want to make sure we just kind of get rid of all that. So I can click on the first one, and there it is. It just fixed the page. I click on Apply, and it'll fix that. Now, I hope that you saw how easy it was to just break the site. So I didn't even click on anything on purpose to mess with it. It just kind of, for whatever reason, that little background accidentally got deleted. So that kind of illustrates my point about when you are clicking on these different edit menus, you want to just go straight to the menu that you're trying to edit so that you don't inadvertently break something else. But now that we are on this page, let's just kind of go back to our normal menu. In fact, let me just exit so I'm showing you from the very beginning everything. Okay, so I'm going to go back to Visit Site just so that it's showing you everything you need to see from the start here. Okay, so we have our normal page. We see that this page has all these different parts, and let's say we want to just change some of these images. So what I would do is I would hover over where it says Edit with Elementor. I click on the actual words Edit with Elementor. It brings up the Elementor page builder. Okay, and now we see our different page parts. Now every single page is divided usually into sections, columns, and elements. You can click on the navigator at the very bottom. It is the second icon in the bottom. And this navigator will also show you all the different sections that you have, as well as the columns within those sections, and any inner columns, and then any elements that you might need. Okay, so if we're looking at this particular header right here, where it's got this video background, it's got an image of your logo, it's got these words, and a button, we can see all of that is happening in this section. So if I click on this section, and just to make sure we're working on the right one, we can flash that little hide icon just to see what disappears, and sure enough it's the right one. So we see inside of this section we've got one column. Inside of that one column we have an intersection, okay, and then inside of there we've got two other little columns. We can always just kind of click on this little handle icon right here. That'll give us the actual section. Sections tend to have backgrounds, so if I were to click on the style menu, I see that it's got a video background, video icon right there. There's the link to the video. If I were to just say, hey, I only want to change the logo, I don't have to use the navigator. I can just go to the logo, hover over it. You see the pencil icon. I can click on that, change the logo right here. If I were going to change the button, I would be able to hover over this button right here, click on the pencil icon, go to the style menu, and we see all of the settings for the button. So usually, if you are getting confused about where things are, that's when you would kind of use the navigator to just to see everything in a very structured way. If you're just wanting to click on things really quickly, make some quick edits, usually there's going to be a pencil icon that lets you do that. Okay. Now, you also have some style settings that are preset for you. So we saw right here on this button, for example, sometimes it's got this little blue global icon, other times it doesn't. So what is the difference? Well, if I click on the global icon, these are site-wide colors that have already been set for you, and you can easily choose one of these, and then boom, it'll just apply those settings automatically to that button. So see, now I've got a darker button. If I wanted to go back to the lighter button, I could easily choose that right there. I think the darker one actually looks good. So we'll just choose that. If we want to change the hover color, We see that it's got this primary color that it has selected, so we would choose that, and so on and so forth. If I want to choose things like fonts, fonts actually end up working the same way. So there are global fonts, which we can click on the global icon for. Oops, that's not the font. Under typography, click on the global icon for, and we see there's already a whole bunch of fonts that have been set for you, and you can always change those. Now let's say that you don't want one of the global colors, you want to choose something that is customized. Let's say we're talking about changing the color of this button again. I can click on the actual color itself, and now we see it's going to bring up a color palette. And this color palette is live, so if I'm dragging, we see it's actively changing the color so that I can see what it's going to look like, and I can choose that color, or I can just type in the color code and that'll give me the actual color for the button. Now I don't really like that blue, doesn't match with the theme at all. Let's just go back. I can easily go back to the global colors, click on accent, and boom, there's the original color right there. Now right here, this column or this row was set up a little bit differently. Here we had one column within this row, and then we had an intersection. Here we just have a another single row, but this time it's got two columns inside of this intersection. Oh, sorry, we skipped one. So we have a single row, but then it's got two columns inside, and then this one has an intersection with two columns inside of it. That can be a little confusing, so it's at times like these where I might say, hey, why don't I just take a look and see the actual navigator. So I might click on this and I might decide, alright, so now I can see these columns, and I see inside of here I've got some more little columns, right? I've got some more little intersections. Depending on what you're doing and whether it's necessary, you can actually rename these so that you can navigate a little bit easier. For example, this column, if I clicked on it, we see it's highlighted. I want to just double click on that and rename that Home Accessories. And hit enter. Boom, so now I know that's the Home Accessories column. Now I want to be able to see what the difference is between the women's and the men's so that I can edit it appropriately. Well, to do that, I might just click right here, and we see, cool, so there's the intersection column. Let's just rename this one Women's, and we can rename this one Men's. And so really what I'm just trying to illustrate is how you can use the navigator to your benefit just to help you stay organized if you're ever looking at a really complicated page. Now let's also take a look at another style setting. So we see right here that on this particular column we have this background image, but what if we want to change that later to a different home accessory? Well, to do that, I would click on the column icon right here. We see that now it's got this style tab that is available. I click on the style tab, I then click on choose image, and I'm now able to choose any one of these images instead of the one that it is, but I think it looks fine, so I'll leave it alone. Now let's say that on this particular image, let's say I changed it to something that was a little bit lighter like these. How would I go about changing the actual color of the font so that it now still looks appropriate with the new image that I've chosen? I'd click on the pencil icon, so I'm hovering over what I want to change. I click on the pencil icon, and then I click on the style tab, and this one's got different parts, so it says first part, second part. I click on first part, and there's the color options right there. So we've got the global white, and we have a global font. We can easily change those again. So let's say I wanted to change this to, I don't know, primary, and now it's going to change it to primary. I think it looked fine how it was though at the global white, so we'll just choose that and we'll leave it alone. But now you know how to change that option. Same thing with this little shop now button down here if I wanted to change this. So right here, I see that when I hover over it, it looks good when it's in white normally, but when I hover over it, I can't really see it. So how would I change that? Again, I'm clicking on the pencil icon, going to the style tab. This time though, I might go to the hover menu. Okay, we could easily choose a different color. So let's say we want to maybe see accent. That one doesn't really look good either. But we can keep on playing around with it until it's got just the right settings, and then we're able to kind of just make sure it's like, all right, cool, that's exactly what I want. Let's say we wanted to maybe try adding a background so that we could see it a little bit better. Let's say we want to add this light background. Okay, cool, that looks nice. Well, now it's a little bit bumped up. We can further drill down and keep on messing with it until it looks just right, but for the sake of this video, you at least are able to see like, hey, here are how the basic options are set up. If I want to remove that color, I'm just going to hit the clear button right there, and now it's gone. If I want to remove the hover entirely, I could just simply set it so that it doesn't really change. It just has that line that pops up and disappears. Alright, so that is how you change that little bit. Now here's a third example of this, okay? Here we have a section, and then this one has 2 columns, but let's say I only want to change just the image on this one. Again, I would click on the column, I go to the Style tab, and there's the image. I can click on Choose Image, choose a different image, and then it's going to give me a different one. So let's say that let's say this time I want, I think this truck looks pretty cool. Let's click on Insert. Cool, there's the truck. But now I don't think it looks right. Maybe I can readjust how it's positioned, so I can say center center. That looks a little bit better, but honestly I just want to go back to what it was. So I have 2 ways of doing that. As we demonstrated before, I could have hit the history, and I can undo having changed that image. I find it a little bit faster to just manually go back and change it. So let me move this navigator out of the way. I can just click on the column again. There's the image that it was. I can go back to the one that I wanted. This one was set, I believe, to top center, so I can reposition that. There we go, that looks good. And I'll leave that alone. Also, you want to make sure if you're ever changing anything that you also go to the responsive mode. That's this little icon right here. This will show us what it's going to look like on desktop, tablet, and mobile. So if I click on tablet, we can just kind of verify, alright, so everything's going to look good on tablet. If we want to get rid of all these little lines so we can see it a little bit better, we can just simply hide this little menu, and it'll give us a good example. If I go to mobile here, alright, if I'm scrolling, all that looks pretty good, I think. Okay, yeah, that looks fine. So we're happy with it. We can then, of course, hit the update button, and that's going to update all these changes that we made, and it will save the page. Now I'm not going to do any updates on this. I'm just going to hit exit because I do not want to save those changes, but at least now you know how to do basic edits on your actual page. Now let's talk about how things are structured. We touched on briefly how when you hover over the Edit with Elementor button right here, it's going to show you all the different theme parts. Let's say that I wanted to change the header. The header is this bit that has your menu, it's got your logo, your site logo. So let's just change all that and see what happens. So I click on Edit, or I click on the header right here. It's going to open up a new editor for me. And now we see that I've only got on this page the actual menu. Now when I'm hovering, I see a few different things. I see all these little menus right here. I see the primary menu. I've got the logo. I have some shop icons, compare icons. I've got this little free shipping part. This is all being controlled by the header. Okay. Now I notice, alright, so I've got this header menu, but I still can't seem to click on these little bits right here. So where are they? How do I change that? I don't see any editing tools right here. If you're seeing that, that means you're not in the right menu. So remember earlier when I mentioned as we were clicking that Edit with Elementor button, how it had all those different theme parts? If you're not seeing what you're looking for, that means you're not inside of the right theme part. So to change that, to change anything like this, we would just simply need to go back and choose the right theme part. So I'm going to exit out of this. Now that we've seen, alright, so I like the menu the way it is, but I want to change it, or I want to change a different part of it. I'm just gonna go back here, go back to the home site, edit with Elementor, and we see the mega menus. Okay, let me explain what a mega menu is. So just naturally, this is your regular menu where it says shop, women's, men's, home furnishings, and toiletries. That's the regular menu. But the mega menu is this giant part that is popping up when you hover over each of these elements. that is the mega menu. So if we want to change anything that is inside of this mega menu, we need to make sure that we're hitting the actual mega menu that corresponds. So I can click on Women's Mega Menu, for example. And it's going to open up another theme builder for me. But this time, look at that. We've got some editing handles, and now we're able to start changing stuff. But it gets a little bit more complicated from here. If I started clicking on bags, hats, gloves, belts, let's say that I wanted to add a different category. I don't know, maybe I want to add, I don't know what women wear, but just a different item. If I click on this, is it going to give me an option to change or add anything? It's still not. That's because this is actually pulling from a sub-menu within this mega menu. So everything is very structured right here. But they are kind enough to actually this time give you a link to the menu screen so that you can quickly change that. So if I go right here, there it is. Bags, hats, gloves, belts. I can easily create a custom link. Okay, we're just going to give this a blank URL, and I'm going to call this other. Add to menu. Okay. Now it's going to add this where it says other. So I'm going to just drag that right here. If I click on save now, and I go back here, I bet if I hit refresh, there's going to now be an other little category right there. Let's see if it happens. Ah, look at that. There's the new other. Okay. So you just saw how to basically change all these little submenus inside of this mega menu, which is a submenu of the primary menu. So I know that's all very complicated, which is why we've got this video, but that is how you control how you're seeing all these things, because your site is made up of a whole bunch of very complicated interconnected pages. So that kind of gives you an overview of just how to change that little thing. So I'm going to delete that because we don't actually want to have an other category. So to do that, I'm just going to click on custom link right here, hit remove, save it again. And when I go back here, when I refresh, it will have removed that little other menu. So let's hit refresh. Awesome. So now the other menu is gone. Now let's talk about how to actually change what we're seeing here. So we've got these different columns. It says accessories, tops, bottoms. You can easily delete one of these columns. Now I'm not going to do that, but if I were to hit delete right here, it would just simply delete this entire column right here. So everything in this little column box you can see would have been deleted, just leaving us with tops and bottoms. If I were to change, let's say, how the accessories tab looks from a styling perspective, you can see there's the color, there's the font right there, set to primary bold. I can easily change that. I can, make that any one of these different colors pretty easily. That part is fine. Now let's look at how this is set up, where it's got this little slider. We see right here it's got bestsellers, and right here there's supposed to be new arrivals, but there's nothing there. How can we change that? So if I click on the pencil icon here, there's this little section where it's showing you what the actual query is going to be. This query is chosen by category, and then by what's included in this category. So in this case, we chose the category as the query, and then the actual category we're choosing is women's collections. We could have also excluded whatever we wanted. So if I clicked on the plus icon, we could have excluded men's collections, home furnishings, etc. But we're just going to show women's collections right here. If I wanted to say show something a little bit more complicated, let's say that I wanted to show women's collections and men's, we will just simply hit a plus instead and now add men's as well. So you see now it's showing me ties and the shoes, but we're in the women's mega menu, so that's a little bit unnecessary. Now let's see what's happening right here. Here we've got products not found. And if I scroll down here, we see we've got women's collections and category, but this time we also have tag. Okay, the particular tag that it's choosing is supposed to be the new arrivals tag, but it's not showing me anything because we have nothing marked as new arrivals. And this is illustrating a really important point right here. Okay, If we were to say that we want to show the query of tag and category, and we want to show that in women's categories, well, it's asking for a tag, but we have not given it one, right? So we saw under category, we gave it women's collections. We see under tag, we've given nothing. So what is it going to show right here? So to change that, let's click on the plus icon. Okay. We see we have a few different options. We've got vases, we've got living room, bathroom, and nothing that we really want. So it's still going to show us nothing because I don't believe we have anything that says women's collections for the kitchen. That just sounds sexist. So what do? We are able to either just delete this entire section, or we're able to go and create a new tag to display right here. So let me just actually do that for a second. So I'm going to go into the dashboard again, and I'm going to go to one of the products. So if I scroll down, let's see, where's my products? I was just looking at it. There it is. And we see all the different possible tags. So let's have a look at that. Okay, so we've got accessories, ascots, belts, etc. Let's have a look at, let's see what we're going to add here. And what I'm really trying to illustrate to you right now is how you can just kind of control your website. So let's go back to Virsaise.com and let's give a few products some tags. So under women's, let's say that we want to set some of these items as new arrivals. So I'm just going to go, let's say, to the actual shop. And we're going to go and create some new arrivals. Okay, so I'm going to sort this down. I only want to see women's shoes that are available. Yeah, okay, let's choose this one. Let's just choose these particular shoes right here. Okay, and let's go to edit this product. Okay, and let's give this tag new arrivals. There it is. So let's choose women's new arrivals and hit add. Alright, so now we've got a new arrival. Now when we go back to our menu right here, let's hit refresh. And let's see now if we're able, did we hit save on that? Let's go and make sure we hit save on this so that it shows up. So hit update. Okay, and let's refresh this. And what you're seeing right now is just kind of how to control the site. So how to make things show up where you want them to. Alright, so let's now hit this pencil icon. We already know that we were looking for tags, so we had tag, category, women's collections. Now let's, look at that. Now that wasn't there before, but because we have a product that has the tag that's appropriate, we can now click women's new arrivals, and boom, now it's showing me the item that we set as new arrivals. If we added a bunch of these, it would scroll, but this gave you the basic illustration of, hey, within my menu, I wanted to show new arrivals. I didn't currently have an item that was marked as new arrivals, so I added that tag to the actual product, which literally is where it says product tags, and then sure enough, when I went back to new arrivals, it showed up right there. Okay? If something happened to this product where, let's say that you sold it, you didn't have any more, it would go back to saying no products found, but now you know how to change that when you see it again. So let's hit update, because I think that looks pretty good. Okay, it's going to take a little bit of time to save if you are making heavy changes. Let's go to view page this time. Alright, so that is our mega menu. Everything looks like it's laid out properly. Now let's go back to the home page. Okay. Okay, so at this point we've talked about how the actual structure of the page is laid out. We've talked about how the menus work, how submenus work, how to change things if you want, and we've just briefly touched on the product. So now let's get deeper into how to control the products that are showing up on your website. Okay? Now if I go to the shop page right here, I can see that I've got on the shop page, I have all these different parts and sections. If I hit edit with Elementor, Now on the last one, I was able to actually click edit with Elementor, and it took me to the edit for the entire page. But this time I can't do that. And that's because this particular page is only made of parts. So for example, we have the shop template, we have the header for this page, the mega menu that we just talked about, and so on and so forth. We have different pop-ups, different filters. So there's like a little off-canvas filter. We have all this stuff. So let's say we just want to edit the shop template itself. We're going to bring up this Elementor builder, and now we see, alright, so cool, we're able to change the layout. If at all possible, I would not bother this page if you can help it, because when you're dealing with the structure pages, you can very easily break your site. So I would only be dealing with this page if you're trying to change things like colors, okay, like styles. Like for example, if we wanted to just change this particular color, right? In fact, let me just leave that alone. But if we wanted to just change styling, that's where you would kind of be tampering with things right here. If we wanted to change the actual filters, you can bother that kind of stuff. But for the most part, leave this page alone if you can. But if you did have to change any of these things, so like you wanted to change the collections that are showing up, you wanted to change the filters, at least now you know that's where all this stuff is. So I'm just going to hit the back button and exit out of this part right here. Let's hit the back button, and let's now go and make a product. So if I go back to my dashboard, let me close this, and let's just go back to our dashboard, and let's look at products. So go all the way back to the normal dashboard. So on the left hand side right here, if I scroll down, I will see products. And if I go to all products, we'll see everything that you have on the site currently, okay? Now there's two ways to create a product. You can of course click on the add new button. So if I click add new right here, it'll take me to a blank page, and I can create all this information from scratch. I can fill out all this stuff, and I can just make a brand new product that way. But that's a very risky way to do it, because what if you don't fill out all the information that was necessary? An easier way to do it, let me delete this example that I was creating. An easier way to do it is, instead of making a blank, a brand new blank product, it's better to have just duplicated an existing one. So for example, let's say that this particular heel right here, I wanted to make another one for a different type of heel, so I'm going to just look for one that already exists. So I can just kind of hover over this. I see edit, quick edit, trash, view, and duplicate. I'm going to click on duplicate right here. It's going to load up that product menu, and now it's created a new product, and that is indicated by the copy right here. So I can easily change the name of this, so we'll call this new heel. Okay, I can change the URL of this heel, so I can say that this is going to be new heel as well. Okay. And as I'm scrolling down, I can see where there already was information, but the important thing is that I don't have to change the redundant information. So for example, the product category is already set. If I wanted to set this as a new arrival, I would simply add that tag, so new arrival, so that it shows up where I wanted it to, so under women's new arrivals in the mega menu. And then as I'm scrolling down here, I have something very important. This is the product data. So this is where I'm setting the price right here. If I go to inventory, if I want it to show up as in stock, I would set that right here. If you want it to disappear from the site, you could change this stock status as well. I prefer to just put things in draft if I'm going to change that, but you can change it from in stock to out of stock right here. Shipping you don't really have to worry about, because those shipping settings are not set right there, but if you knew the weights and dimensions of the item, that would be more important if you were shipping something big. So let's say that you were shipping a big picture or a piece of furniture or something like that. Then your shipping settings would matter a lot, because people need to know how much these things weigh. so that the site can calculate taxes and shipping costs. Linked products, if I wanted to link this to other heels, I'd be able to just type right here and click that. So I don't know what all the heels are called, so I won't mess with that right now. But if I started typing, it would display the different heels, and that would display right here, just so that you can kind of upsell. And then, most importantly, the attributes tab. So we're going to spend a little bit of time on this. The attributes tab is what allows your filters to work. So when we were on that shop page, we saw on that little menu, it had all the different categories, it had colors that you could choose from. All that stuff is controlled by the attributes tab. So first we have the collection, and this is why it's important to duplicate a product instead of creating a new one, because a lot of this stuff will already be set for you. So women's shoes was the collection, but then we see that there's a sub-collection which was pumps and Revive, right? If we were to choose the color of this particular shoe is black. If we were to instead have a pink shoe or a white shoe, we would change that right here. That way, when a person is searching the site and they're looking for things in different categories or by different attributes like color, everything is going to show up right where it needs to, and the site will work and therefore be a little bit easier to use. And then size. Let's say that you've got a large woman who's only looking for large items. Well, you'd be able to set that right there under size. If they were looking for medium, etc., all those sizes would show up right here. So you want to make sure that you always update your attributes whenever you're controlling your products. And then finally, you have the short description. I like to put a description that is a little bit more complicated than this because it does help for Google to find your page, and it also helps when a person is searching. But your description isn't always necessary, but this is where it shows up. This is where you control it right there. And then, of course, you would publish this item, this new item, and then it will show up on the site in the categories and sections where you have set it. So that is how you add a product. And if you wanted to delete a product, you can do that either from the products menu and just simply find the one that you want and delete it. You can also go to the actual product that you're looking at. You can click on move to trash. You can set it as a draft, which means that it won't show up on the site. It'll just kind of be saved for later. So you have a lot of different ways where you can control how the products actually show up on your site. So now I'm going to go back to this products, make sure that we kind of covered everything. I think we did. If you have any questions that are outside of just like the styling and things that are getting into the structure, so for example, let's say you wanted to start messing with these menus that are dynamically set, you can do that. The issue is whenever you're changing something that is structure-wise, you do have a risk of breaking the site just because all of these pieces are interconnected. So if you remove one piece, that means another piece somewhere else might not work. But you can always see all the pieces that are on a particular page just by hovering over Edit with Elementor, and you can see all the site parts right here. Okay, so like the menus, the filters, the footers, headers, everything is right there. All right. I hope that this video really helped. If you have any other questions, just please feel free to let me know. And just to make sure I explain properly, because the most important thing was managing products, we went to dashboard and we went to the actual products menu, which was right here, and this is where we were managing the products. So you can always duplicate what you're looking for and then just simply change the settings, change the images, and then edit it from there. Okay, I hope this helps.